Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be taking a look at a brawler right now, which I think is really overpowered in a couple of game modes. This brawler isn't like completely broken everywhere, but definitely within a few of them, it's literally one of the best picks you could possibly go, whether it's even on ladder or on Power League. So before we jump into the video, then make sure you're using the create code. That'd be greatly appreciated. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. Alright, guys, so jumping into the brawler, which I think is quite possibly the most underrated brawler within the game right now, but specifically on certain maps and modes. I don't think I've actually lost a single game with her on Power League because of how strong she can be in certain circumstances. So the game modes, well, obviously Eve is the brawler, right, but the game modes and maps which you should be looking to use her on as much as possible, because she completely dominates. The one game mode in particular which I feel like she's probably the best in is Knockout, because she's got really good survivability, of course, being able to go over water, but also her gadget's a good getaway. Her super, you can slowly build up over time and then waste up a bunch of ammo from the opposition. I just think, again, like, she's been slept on a lot, and I still don't really see people pick her, maybe because they're a little bit scared of how bad she's been in the last like few months or so since the nerfs. But trust me, she's definitely a really strong power pick. So the maps I can think of in particular, Out in the Open is one that stands out the most. Normally can sit on like the left hand side pocket, which again, I could play really passive, build up my super, and then a lot of times you're facing single shot brawlers on that map, like Bonnie, like Bell, Piper, for example, and this super is just really good at wasting their ammo. So that's going to be the first game. Let's hop into the next one. Alright, guys, jumping into the next game then. So unfortunately we haven't got any good ladder maps to really showcase this, but there's a ton of ladder maps as well where you can literally abuse the not the grass, the water so much. And of course, it's really hard to hit an Eve when she's constantly floating across the water. So that's why I just really love her right now. Survivability is just insane. So of course, she's really strong on certain maps, which, you know, even without the recent buffs, I saw a little bit of usage with her. So on maps like Canal Grande, for example, she's actually pretty strong. Shooting Star right now, she's actually an incredibly strong pick. You can always float around the middle and again be incredibly passive. Of course, you've got to be a little bit cautious of Max, for example. That's going to be your biggest counter with Eve. So if you want to play Eve, if it's a good Eve map, make sure you're banning out the Max, because of course, like, Eve's shots sometimes are a little bit easy to dodge, so bear that in mind as well. Make sure you're kind of switching up the patterns, or a lot of the time I like to just shoot in the same kind of direction twice. So, you know, if they dodge the first attack, they're going to be hit by the second one. So hopefully Brawler can walk this one in, and that's going to be another quick game. Let's hop into the next one. Alright, guys, jumping into the next game then. So as I mentioned, I've been playing a lot more Power League than of recent times. Probably in the past few days I've been playing a lot, and literally I think on Out in the Open, I think I picked Eve like 3 times, and I think I won every single time. I think I picked on Canal Grande and won as well. And trying to think of the other map as well, there's definitely another one, Shooting Star, I think, that I picked her as a mid, or even went down the lane. And a lot of times I won, I did win on that map in particular. So, you know, Eve, definitely a brawler that people are sleeping on. This is a legendary too as well, so got to bear it in mind. And also watch a ton of scrims, and I see Eve being used so much on Shooting Star. You know, you've got to bear in mind as well, Shooting Star, there's a lot of you know, long range brawlers that are normally being played, so Eve can definitely work really well, as long as like Nani, Piper, and Max are banned out pretty much. So yeah, I would say she's a decent mid overall as well. As I mentioned, Lake Cake probably not the best map for her. And then going into Brawl, probably one of her worst modes. Like, you can use her, but a lot of times there's just too much, you know, tanks, there's too many maxes going around, and sometimes she can, of course, not be the best against pressure. Heist, I've actually seen her being used quite a bit. Bridge Too Far is an actually really good map for her. Like, you of course got to have 2 damage dealers on your side. I think if you guys watch my free to play series, you've seen Eve work really well on that map, but of course you got to pair it with like 2 really good damage dealers, because she's really good at just maneuvering around the lanes and helping them win their lanes. So that's going to be another game. Let's hop into the next one. Alright, guys, so jumping into the next game then. So again, we've got Undermine, which isn't completely the best map to show off Eve, but again, talking about her best maps, I think it is really important to, of course, constantly highlight this, because again, she's not like completely insane everywhere. Maybe as the meta develops, she might be secretly insane everywhere, but for now, I still think it's mainly the maps with a lot of water. So again, on the topic of Heist sense to Heist, you wouldn't think, and you've probably seen me complain a few times when I've played Power League, that Eve isn't the best Heist brawler. Of course, she isn't that great at dealing damage to their Heist safe, but again, she's just really good at winning the lanes and helping those matchups. In particular, like maps like Bridge to Fire can be a little bit awkward specifically if someone switches their matchup. You know, Eve doesn't have to, of course, go all the way around to switch matchup. She can just go across the water. Same goes for safe zone. Like, a lot of times, Eve is a really good, like, always in high, so you've got to have that brawler that can turn defense to offense, and Eve is a fantastic brawler for this because, of course, she can just float about any lane she wants. And then also there's always like an annoying brawler like Cole, Daryl, or just any type of aggro that always gets into that left pocket on safe zone, so she can be really good at defending that overall. And then you also have Hot Zone, which we'll talk about in the next game, because these games are fairly simple so far. I mean, we're not playing with randoms this time around, and you can see just how easy it is to win time and time again when you're not stuck with bad randoms. So that's going to be another win. Let's hop into the next game. All right, guys, jumping into the next game, and so we're going to be trying out in Heist, even though this isn't a map with a lot of water, and probably one of our more worse Heist maps, so won't be surprised if I actually end up losing this one. But okay, on to other maps as well then. So we do have Hot Zone. Again, another hot conversation to have, because people still feel like Eve maybe isn't completely the strongest brawler, but I feel like on Ring of Fire she actually has a decent chance of popping it off, because of course there's water around there. I wouldn't really say she's like the top brawler, but you know, in certain cases, again, if you know the composition isn't like really aggressive, you can definitely pull out an Eve. She's pretty decent. I've seen her used on open zone as well. And then of course the golden game mode for her, Knockout, which for me, you just gotta try it because she's absolutely insane. There's just hardly any counters to her Knockout. Survivability is always the name of the game in Knockout, and of course the gadget's really gonna help her out a lot, and constantly being across the water, it's just gonna be really annoying for the enemy team to deal with. So also Gold Arm Gouge, I have seen a few times, again, like pro teams have been using a lot of Eve, so it's not really replicated to Power League right now. Like, I don't see too much Eve other than myself, but you guys just need to definitely try it out. So at the end of the video, I'll give you guys like the main maps just as a recap, so you know 100% which ones to try out on Power League. But also, of course, with Eve, you've had a couple of buffs, right? You've had the damage buff, which I'm not sure percentage wise, I think it was like around 10%, which actually is quite a bit of extra damage considering up close, you know, it's quite easy to hit those shots with Eve. And then she also got the reload gears, so she's had basically 2 damage buffs, well, DPS buffs. You know, you're gonna deal more damage, but also put out damage a lot more as well. So yeah, Eve definitely a really good brawler right now, and you could see over a little bit of time her getting a lot more usage. So that's gonna be another game. Let's jump into the final one. All right, guys, jumping into the final game. And so let me know what you think of Eve in the comment section below, whether you feel like I'm overrating Eve, or if the general kind of consensus is that people are really underrating her. Like, I feel like, as I said, as time goes on, people will underrate her. So I've already kind of made like an underrated video about Lou. You know, Lou, I thought it could maybe start you know, creeping into other game modes, but Lou, I mean, he actually is insane on Hot Zone. Like, I love using Lou on Hot Zone right now in the meta, but you know, outside of that, he's not really the best. But at least he's returned to the Hot Zone meta. Like, I felt like he started to creep out of it again, but cycling your super so easily, you know, it's pretty good. I still see people, you know, go for the odd pick of Lou sometimes, you know, competitive. Sometimes it does work, but sometimes, you know, it's just such a high risk brawler considering it's so hard to hit his shots consistent, right? So you know, just on that hot topic as well, a lot of people pointing that one out, but you know, he definitely has his niche. Same with Eve's. Like, I like these type of brawlers, like that strong in particular game modes. You know, it should stay that way. I feel like there should really be not a lot of brawlers that are just so good everywhere. It just becomes a little bit boring, right? You know, if you just see brawlers like Otis, for example, just literally everywhere, brawlers like Buster everywhere, you know, it can get a little bit repetitive. And that's what it used to be like with Eve, right? Like, she used to be so toxic. Her star power used to be really obnoxious, like spawning hatchlings literally all the time. You know, it took literally I think it was like a quarter less to get the super. I forgot the direct hits, but I think it went from like 9 hits to 12 hits. So, you know, there was a lot of heavy nerfs with Eve. So I don't think we'll be seeing like Eve become the best brawler. That's not what the point of the video is. It's just a brawler that's just really good in particular game modes. So yeah, that's gonna be it for today's video. As I mentioned, the main ones that you're going to be trying out Eve for sure on: the Shooting Star and Canal Grande on Bounty, Gold Arm Gouge and Out in the Open for Knockout, and then maybe even try it out on Heist. You know, Bridge Too Far, I've been having some decent success rate with it. So that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.